So the question came in then is, are there some common things people say they experience when they come back, or is it just completely random where this is what my family's cooking, there's a quarter, there's a number, or is there like, how many of these are like I experienced heaven versus I experienced something that happens here on earth?
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people go for the evidence in the room or down the hall or outside the building.
Yeah.
I have had two cases, by the way, where the person was out and they were putting them on an ambulance, but the person was up above their body and they read the number on the top of the ambulance that helicopters use to track the ambulance. So
Yeah.
there's two more examples of numbers, but when they want to pick that kind of evidence, they say, what about heaven and hell? 21%, according to one survey, 21% of all the cases were hell cases. But let me tell you why I don't trust those. Whenever there's a whole, now these are Christian objections. Um, Whenever somebody has statements about the Bible, they'll say, yeah, I can't accept NDEs because nobody went to hell. Or what about the guy who saw an angel instead of seeing Jesus? Or, they've got these things about heaven.
Yeah.
I only like to have evidential. If you want me to give evidence, I can only give you this worldly stuff. It is the 1982 quarter. It is the 12-digit number. It is the woman where the machine wasn't plugged in. It's the one where the girl knew what her mom was making for dinner. She had no brain activity, as far as I know. Those are the cases. But if you go, how come it didn't work out? I know a well-known skeptic of NDE research, but he doesn't trust the data because it's not biblical enough for him. Okay. Here's my problem. None of the heavenly parts, what are you going to do about the heavenly parts? Where's your evidence? Okay, well, I saw Jesus. Okay, I hate to say this because I think you might see Jesus sometime, but how do you know you saw Jesus? I'm just telling you who I was with. Did you ask him? No. Even if he told you, would you believe him? I don't know, it was Jesus. Okay, how do you know you were in hell? There's no evidence. Maybe you were born in the Bible Belt and you just believe there's going to be a hell there. What I mean is, all the heavenly cases are testimonies. It's no more evidential for me to tell you I was in heaven or I was in hell than to be my next door neighbor and to tell me I'm Jewish. I don't believe anything you're talking about. That's your testimony. You have a right to believe that. But don't cite the what didn't match up to your biblical idea when you have no evidence that that happened or didn't happen. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's this worldly stuff that's verifiable.
Yeah.
Not this doesn't happen. But what if an angel said, well, you better, if you're going to get back up here again in 20 years, you better become a Buddhist because that's what's true. There are no cases like that. But there's no evidence for that. What if it was a bad dream?
Well, and aren't there cases where non-believers say that they went and experienced heaven?
Oh.
And how would we make sense of that?
Well, and there's the other one too. There's a paper years ago where the author said he didn't believe in anything after death until he had a near-death experience, and now he knows there's a hell. I mean, there's those cases too. But see, you go, well, hey, you must like that one because you're one of those Christians. I'll say, well, I could tell the story and laugh. Notice I left till the end of the interview here. I don't put it up front because there's no evidence he saw hell. I only use the evidential cases. Yeah. But your consciousness should not be working when the machines say you have no heart, no brain activity.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely true. Now, what would...
Way,
go for it.
When you have a certain kind of species of heart attack, a cardiac arrest with ventricular fibrillation, when your heart's not working, it only takes about 14 seconds for your brain to stop working. So if you give me an NDE report that's, let's say, 2 minutes after the fact, you're giving me data, and it's evidential, you're giving me a report that can't be accounted for as far as we know from the heart or brain.
Wow. Now, what would you say to like a Christian objection, maybe of quoting 2 Corinthians 5:8 that says to be, separate away from the body is to be present with the Lord? Scripture seems to point to that when your soul separates from the body, you're with the Lord. You're not floating around on earth, checking in on your family and seeing what kind of quarters are up in the vents.
If I were saying, if you were telling me that, and you want to take a stand for Scripture, I'd say, how do you know what you're doing 10 seconds after you die? Could you be on your way to heaven and see the quarter on the rafter? Could maybe it take 3 minutes to die, as people think now, and you don't just like in the old westerns, you don't just go and you're dead. Maybe you're still around your body until all the processes stop. Jewish tradition is that the spirit hovered around the body for 3 or 4 days because that's when things were finally done. I mean, I don't think that's what people are thinking today. But what I'm saying is, how do you know what you can't do on the way to heaven? We don't know anything. And by the way, it's appointed that a man wants to die after the judgment. That's the book of Hebrews. I say to people when they quote that verse to me, I'll say, well, tell me something. If it's after that, the judgment, has that judgment come yet? If that judgment hasn't come yet, why are you telling me I can't know what happens 5 minutes later?
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, trying to understand how we have these conversations and how can we, discuss this good evidence. So as we kind of piece these together, another question just came in, so let me throw this one up. Do out-of-body experiences, not necessarily near death, also prove? So are we using this to prove the existence of a soul? Is that one thing that we can do?
If they're evidential, I think there's something interesting there. But the problem with those kind of things, some of those are manifested like people do them on purpose. And to me, that sounds more occultic. But if the person there's some value to knowing the person is close to death. I would rather have a case with measurably flat brain, flat heart, and then you give evidence 20 minutes after the fact where we have reason to think those two organs aren't working. I would rather take those cases than the kind you're talking about, because you can get some bombastic ones, but if there's no data for them, I don't have much reason. So if someone's having an out-of-body experience, how do I know that they just don't have the ability to do some crazy things? If there's no evidence they had them, how do I know they're telling the truth? How do I know it wasn't a dream? I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying, let's use the same criteria. How would I know you had it?
Yeah.
So I go for the most evidential ones.
Yeah. So kind of wrapping this all up, another area is you study miracles. And I think that the objection against all of this, as we kind of look at the worldview aspect, is this naturalistic kind of philosophy of materialism that our world seems to hold to, that a lot of people have. And we've kind of discussed some aspects of that, where you use near-death experiences to show that there's some sort of immaterial world, that naturalism might be false. I mean, how would you go about? Oh yeah, go.
I think that's the most obvious thing that comes from this.
Yeah.
Buddhists, think about this. Buddhists, Hindus, Muslims, Jews, and Christians are shoulder to shoulder if they think NDEs are pretty cool. Who's the odd man out? Naturalists. They're the ones who have the most to lose. They're the ones who deny everything. And here's the Buddhist going, it's true, dude. We have one of these in our family. The Muslim says, hey, I saw Jesus in a dream. The Jewish guy goes, hey, it happened to my father. He's Orthodox Jew. There's these other sorts of things. And what they all agree is, man, I'm not trying to tell you what's going on, but you better get your heart right. There's something going on out there. There's something out there in the real world. So I think the clearest conclusion is naturalism is mistaken.
Yeah. So what would a naturalist say then? Is as you present this, you kind of said, a lot of people are surprised they haven't studied it, but I'm sure there are naturalists that have studied this. How would they respond and object to what you say?
They'd probably say hallucination. He's just dreaming. He's just that. He's just this. There are cases when people come back. How about a guy who's an atheist? There's more than one of these cases. How about people who say they became Christians during the near-death experience? They met Jesus. Now, they can't prove they saw Jesus, but they come back and they left their atheism, and maybe they were ardent critics, and now they witnessed everybody they have a chance to witness to. There are a lot of change stories where atheists have one of these and come to believe in the afterlife.
Yeah. So you have seen the evidence for the resurrection, the evidence of NDEs actually be powerful in bringing people to Christianity?
I have.
Awesome.
I have, by God's grace, because that's not, I think you said it correctly, and people coming to Christianity. It's not me bringing them in. It's not me twisting their arm. It's not chalk one up for me.
Yeah.
But yes, and Greg Kokel, I love his put a stone in the shoe.
Yep.
There are a lot of people who walk away with stones in their shoes after these things.
That's awesome.